Welcome to part 3 of the How to Reload 300 Blackout. We're going to be using the Lee decapper slash full length. Full length is important. It's usually stated as FL on the die set. This is the Lee FL or full length size decapping slash sizing die. As you can see, it has focus. It has the expanding portion in there, so that expands the neck out. And this little pin right here is what takes the old primer out, and you can make adjustments and stuff like all that up here. And they feature this rubber ring here to kind of lock the nut in place, so it's like always in the same spot. Now, first of all, when you put this on here, you want to make sure that everything's the same every time you do this. So you're going to want to put your ramrod as far up as it'll go with whatever your setup is until it's touching the base. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. This is a quick detach system here, but so you want to screw it on to where, you know, this surface here is meeting up with the bottom surface right here. So let me get this on here, and I'm an idiot, so it's not working out too good. There you go. So I have this pre-set up, but that's what you want to do. So you want to put it up to where it's touching, and you don't want the handle to touch the back of whatever surface you're working on. You want it to be kind of you want it to be touching here at the very end of the stroke. So so that there would normally be a little bit higher it could go. Anyway, the ramrod I'm talking about. So this is the shell holder. This is a Lee, what is it, a number 4 shell holder, and you can get any shell holder and any die set will work for this. Lee specifically states that their die is not intended to form new 300 blackout brass, but I'm going to get to my theory here in a second, and my theory is 100% correct because it works, because I've done it. Anyway, this is Unique Case Lube by Hornady, and you can also use it for your boots if you want to waterproof stuff. Anyway, so what I like to do is, because we're going to be dealing with a little bit of water from the primer kind of holds on to some of the liquid because it's kind of like just paper in there. So we are going to have a little bit of water touch our metal surfaces here. So I like to use the case lube to kind of lubricate the ramrod. I also do this just even if I'm not forming brass, just to lubricate it, because it's sort of it stays on, and it kind of makes your press really smooth operating. But yeah, so you want to kind of prime it with this, because there's going to be a little bit of water touching your steel surfaces, and you don't want any rust or anything to form if you don't do this for a while and maybe let it sit for a long time. Okay, so you know, I didn't cut this one properly. Let's start with a different one. So with each case, you want to lube now my fingers are all dirty. You want to lube the case, and this is to prevent the case from sticking inside of the die, because you know, there's a lot of force inside of there. So we want to put it in our shell holder, and you'll feel a little bit of resistance, not a whole lot, because these are pretty small cases. And now we have it formed. So, you know, Lee says, you know, this still has to be trimmed and deburred and chamfered, but we'll get to that in a later video. But Lee says that this does not form, it's not intended for forming cases. My theory is this is basically a spent case, right? And so this has been basically shot out of a gun and needs to be resized. So we'll take that same case we just did, and we'll form it, or we'll resize it rather. Now, with our second one, you can see that, maybe you can't see it, but you can see that our neck and our shoulder is much more defined. There's a clearer line. So now, I would say this is good, and usually I do it by resistance. I do usually 2 to 3 presses per formed case. If the case has already been formed and trimmed and everything, and I shot it on my gun, I'll only put it through the press once. But when I'm forming 300 blackout brass, I will do it 2 to 3 times. Now, some people will say, look at your head stamps. This in particular is Lake City. Oh no, this is Federal. I don't know. It's let me find Lake City here. Yeah, this is a Lake City or whatever, and some people even separate the Lake Cities by the year. And with Lake City, they actually put the year on all their head stamps. This is 2015. And you can tell by well, if this camera would ever focus. Anyway, it says 15 on it. Some of them will say 14, some 06. You know, like that's the year. This is a 10. This is a Lake City 10. So some people would say, you know, separate your head stamps and stuff because the case thicknesses are different. Like if you you're gonna need some digital calipers or some calipers of some sort, and I do have them, and I will be putting them in one of the videos later on. But some people say to measure the case wall thickness of your neck here, or your soon-to-be neck, to make sure it's not too thick to make 300 blackout brass. Now, I've used the cases that they said flat out will not work, and my gun cycles them flawlessly. So that's one of those things where it's just dependent on your particular gun and your particular chamber. So just see what works, and don't throw away a bunch of brass if you've got it. It doesn't take that long to form it. Maybe you do a couple as some testers, so you don't, you know, load up 100 of them and have them all not work. But just test it out in your gun before you just completely dismiss some brass. You might have hundreds or thousands of cases that you think can't be used, but really in all reality, it can be used with your particular gun. So let's form some more cases. These are some cases I've already trimmed. There's quite a few, not trimmed, but have already sized. And so I'm just kind of throwing these in a big old box down by my feet. So again, here's my technique. I take a little dab, just a little bit, doesn't have to be a ton, and then kind of swipe it on the sort of middle portion. And the reason why I'm putting it on only the middle portion or kind of towards the base is because I want the neck to remain dry. So when we get to the powder charges, so the powder doesn't stick to the side walls or inside the neck. You know, I want to make sure the lube does not get in. Twist. And I felt a little bit of resistance, so I'm going to do one more. I'm going to twist it again. Now, what you can do in between twists is take it off and re-lube it, and you'll notice it's much easier to do the press. But that would be, so when you do anything more than 3, and it's just not working out, and it's not forming properly, that brass is too thick. So you can throw that aside, throw it in your recycling bin, or whatever. So, but yeah, like what I was saying with the case lube, you don't want felt a little bit of resistance. You don't want the case lube getting inside the case, because that can affect your powder. It can make it to where your powder doesn't respond appropriately, and depending on the type of case lube you're using, if it's like maybe the kind that you spray on a piece of foam and then kind of roll them on, it's a little bit different. I prefer this because it makes it to where I know where I'm putting the lube. You know, there's no question on like where the lube got to. I know where it got to because it was on my finger and I transferred it from my fingers to the case. Let me see if I can give you an example of running it through the press once as opposed to running it through the press, you know, 2 or 3 times. You can see the difference in definition. Now that one was pretty thick in terms of I felt a lot of resistance. Let's see if it loosens up. It did. Okay, so on the one on my left has been run through. Wipe it off so you can see the necks better. Okay. So the one on the left has been run. Oops, where is it? 3 times, and the one on the right has been run 1 time. Okay. You can kind of see how the one on the right here, why is this not focusing? Focus. Yeah, you can kind of see how it looks like from the neck to the shoulder, there's not that really clear line, that really clear horizontal line, and the one on the left here, you can see it's a really sharp sort of line. So that's the difference. And if you're wanting to get more or closer to the SAMI specifications for, you know, your 300 blackout chamber, then I would recommend running it through 2 to 3 times when you're forming. Again, when you're just reloading these cases, you know, go ahead and just run it through once. You know, you don't need to overwork the brass, and overworking the brass will lead to shorter life of your case. So, you know, if you're going to get 10 out of a good batch, you know, you're going to probably get, you know, I don't know, like 5 or 8 before something goes wrong. I've only had 1 out of the thousands of cases I've formed, thousands. I've only had 1 split neck. So I don't know what that says, if I'm doing something correctly, or maybe I have good brass. Maybe your situation's different than mine. Maybe all of yours are splitting. I don't know your particular situation. And in case I didn't mention it, this press here, this is a Lee Challenger press. But this is really all there is to it for this step. Just, you know, one thing I would recommend is getting all your brass deprimed and not switching your dies around. You know, do it step by step. You know, there's less room for error when you do it step by step, and you know, you take the time to look at each case and stuff and see really what it you know, how it's looking. I will mention in this portion, you're gonna run into some brass that is ugly, and maybe it's questionable. Let me see if I can find something here. I mean, we've already gone through quite a few cases here. You know what? Okay, let's. Here's a weird one. I messed up on the cut. You can see that the shoulder is still actually intact, and you know, I messed up. So let's run it through the press. And I'm assuming it's blurry now. Yep, it's blurry. Okay. There you go. No problem. Just got to trim it a little bit more. You could actually put an entire full-length case in this. It'll be a little bit more resistance, and the neck will be like this long, but we're going to trim it anyway, so that's that. Now let's get a little bit more extreme, right? Let's take some pliers here and smash this bad boy. Right? This is okay. This got maybe stepped on the range a bunch of times, right? Load it up here. Do it a little bit slower. And there you go. You can see like the little teeth marks from the pliers, but that'll have no problem firing. There are going to be some cases you have to throw away occasionally. But for the most part, you can run a lot through your press, and it's not going to hurt anything. You do want to make sure and check inside your cases before you put them on your press. I've already checked these, but that's something I forgot to mention is you want to check inside your cases, because some of those stainless steel pins can kind of stick in there sometimes. And then you can bend your decapping rod, which isn't a huge deal. But if you run RCBS dies, their decapping pins break very, very easily. If you apply just anything more than a little bit of pressure to, you know, something that is providing a little bit of resistance, you know, if you clamp down a little bit harder or push a little bit harder, you're gonna snap the pin. So make sure to have extras on hand. With the Lees, I've bent that pin probably, I don't know, like 5 times already, to where it's like just mangled. And what I did is I took it over to sort of an anvil area, like a flat steel area, you know, and hammered it flat and resanded it down because it was kind of like the finish was kind of all messed up on it. And it ran fine. I just straightened things back, you know. It didn't break. And that's one of their claims, is that their decapping pins don't break, you know. Yep. Which seems to be the case so far. So one more time. All the way, full stroke. Bring it out, twist it. Full stroke again, or not full stroke, but all the way back up. And a third time if you felt any extra resistance. And normally I'll do just 2. Like that one felt great. So that was part 3, and we'll get to part 4, which will be trimming very shortly. And I can show you a couple of examples of how to do that, and maybe some things to avoid. So stay tuned for part 4. Thank you.